Hello and welcome back. Brett here with clickmill.co. In this video, I want to discuss with you the relationship between decisions and your resources. So we've already discussed how your resources, what your resources are and how we're looking at investing them. So we've looked at that. Now I want to talk to you about the relationship between your decisions and those resources. So when you make a decision, and you cut off from something, that is also a decision to allocate your resources in a particular way. And so if you've cut off the wrong thing, you cut the wrong vine from the branch, you are misallocating your resources, or minimally, you're allocating those resources to something that is less fruitful. Okay, now what do I mean? Well, for example, in the scripture, Jesus does this with people. Okay, which is just the most terrifying thing. Work out your faith with fear and trembling, because my goodness, you know, don't want to be on the wrong side of that cut. But I'm getting off topic. Okay, so Jesus says, I am the vine and you are the branches. And he goes on to say, anyone who does not produce fruit, right, that vine will be chopped off and thrown into the fire. Okay, well, one of the things that I do, I guess this is really all I do, is I study growth. I study how do we create growth in, how do we produce fruit in the kingdom, so that I can teach you, so that you can go out and you can change the world. And we use the strategies here at ClickMill so that we know they work, and then we just give them to you. So when you're farming or gardening, which I have done specifically to better understand how this works, well, for example, I have a sweet potato vine, and these sweet potatoes, as they come up, sometimes the leaves get like bugs or mold or something, slugs, like who even knows? There's so many things that can kill the vine. Anyway, but let's say you've got this long vine and then you've got this fork off the vine. Well, if this fork starts to die, the plant naturally goes, oh my gosh, part of me is dying, and it starts to divert extra resources over to the sick vine. Well, then what happens? The whole rest of the vine gets weaker because the resources are not where they're supposed to be. So I want you to start and just think about your business or your ministry there. If you've got a weak part and you're putting extra resources over here, you don't have enough resources in the healthy areas that are probably producing all the income or producing all the new visitors or whatever it is. And so what happens? Jesus says, the vine that doesn't produce branches, that doesn't produce fruit, gets the knife, and then he throws it in the fire and burns it. Okay, so then, naturally, in my garden out here, I'm like, all right, well, we got to cut that off. So firstly, I'll tell you this. It's just a plant. It's just a sweet potato plant, but you go out and you focus on this thing every day, and it's like, oh, it's my baby. I couldn't do it. It'll be okay. And you don't want to cut it off. That's what happens to us in ministry, in business. You put all this effort into tending and caring for this thing. And then when it becomes evident that it's not producing the fruit, or it's not alignment with the vision of your ministry, or it becomes evident that that needs to go, it is extraordinarily difficult to cut. And then you're going to face all this resistance from either people in the business or in the ministry, and it's going to be hard to cut. And this is what I say when I say you've got to be willing to sacrifice. And you got to be willing, if people are upset about you, you just cut it. Cut it. Don't ask for permission. It's got to go, and deal with the fallout, because that's what happens. Well, so what happens when I cut this vine from the potato plant, the sweet potato vine in the garden? Well, what happens is yeah, that whole thing dies, which is tough. But very quickly, within even a day sometimes, but a couple days, you begin to see the plant get healthier. Okay. Whoa. Not only that, it gets healthier, it usually grows very rapidly, because now it's got all these leftover resources. And where does it put the resources? It puts the resources into all the healthy parts of the vine, and then that grows super fast. So that dead and dying branch was just sapping and draining all of the plant's energy and resources. And as soon as you cut it off, that plant's able to grow. So one of the interesting things about your decisions and your resources is that when you connect those two and you stop wasting resources, you realize, oh, I have way more resources than I thought because I was willing to cut this old thing out. So you shrink, you do the cut, the prune, and then you grow rapidly because you've got extra resources to invest. So to add a little bit to the analogy before we move on, what happens if you don't make the intentional cut? If you don't cut the sick vine, the whole plant gets sick and dies. That's it. That's all that happens. It just, the sickness continues to spread. That's why you cut it off. And what happens the longer you wait? Well, no. We'll fix it. We'll fix it. As soon as it becomes clear that that vine is not going to live, you got to go. You got to cut it quick. Why? Because the sickness spreads. And only question is, how much sacrifice will you have to endure? So if it continues to spread further and further up the vine, you've got to prune it further and further back. Well, unfortunately, there comes a point at which you have to prune it so far back, it kills the plant because it has no leaves left. And so you want to do all of the pruning as quickly as you possibly can so that those resources can be reinvested over somewhere else and and quickly produce a larger fruit in the fruitful areas of that vine. So decisions are directly related to resources. That's kind of the primary theme I'm trying to pull through this. Anytime you make a resource, excuse me, anytime you make a decision, you are making a choice as to how to allocate resources, and you can do it in ways that are better. Like, for example, cut off the sick part and it allocates the resources in a healthy way. Or you can make the decision to do nothing. And most people just do that passively. Wow, it'll be fine. You know, we'll see what happens. That's the decision to not make a decision, in which case the sickness will spread. And the resources in the vine or in your ministry or business will continue to be allocated off in this area where it's going to be wasted and unfruitful. And so hopefully that helps you to understand the connection between decision making and the resources that you have at your disposal in your ministry or your business and in your personal life with your family, with the people around you. So with that, thank you so much for being here. I will look forward to seeing you in the very next video. God bless.